Hello. Today we are here. We are here to discuss. Oh, look, by the way, look at this giant cow I got. His name is Morris. Please comment something down below. Say something like, Morris, if my son was a third of the man you are today, then I would have someone to be proud of. Tell him that in the comments. Today we're going to be talking about an issue in this world, an issue that has existed for years to come. You tag. This is something that I have tried to kind of stop caring about for the past 2 years, and it is something that I have successfully failed to stop caring about. I talked to my sister about this. Well, actually, I talked to my sister. It's never about this initially, but somehow the conversation oftentimes will end up being about this. And so my goal today is to make this video, to put my thoughts and feelings in this video, and hopefully that will make it so that they never crawl back into me ever again. So what is the topic at hand? What is the topic at hand? Well, it is Wreck-It Ralph, specifically the second one, Ralph Breaks the Internet. I have many thoughts and opinions. I watched a video. No, I watched the movie. What am I talking about? I watched the second movie yesterday to verify that I hated it. And I did. In fact, when I watched the second movie, I remembered some things I'd actually forgotten about, that I also hate. So I come to you today with more hate than I had initially. But let me say something real quick. While there will be many negative things to be said, they spawn from a place of positivity, because the first Wreck-It Ralph, the first movie, is probably my favorite movie. So the reason I loathe the second one to the degree that I do is because it followed something so great, so wonderfully told, and it completely demolished it. So I do want, to be fair to the writers of Wreck-It Ralph 2. It would have been hard for them to live up to my unreasonably high expectations, because I loved the first movie so much. I loved the characters, I loved the world building, I loved everything about it. So admittedly, I don't know that it would have even been possible to kind of match that, to me anyway. So that's not fair to them, and that's not their fault. But I do believe that they could have still made a good movie, even if it wasn't up to my unreasonable standards. I still feel like they could have made a good story, and there are a few reasons why I believe that didn't happen that I will be talking about today. But we will start with my first most petty argument on this topic. Oh, another thing. I think I might have just hit you. I'm not 100% sure, but I am a little bit sure that I did. The first thing I want to say, this is my most unreasonable point, and it's why I'm leading with this, because it's petty and it's not really tied to any actual writing critique. I am a writer myself. I'm working on a comic book right now, so I do love writing and art as a general whole, but this first critique is not related to writing. It is just me having petty feelings. My first point is why is there no Sugar Rush? There is Sugar Rush for maybe like 2 seconds, and then it goes away, and they replace it with Slaughter Race. Actually, another note before I go into this video is going to be very confusing if you have not seen already the first Wreck-It Ralph and Ralph Breaks the Internet. If you have not seen both of these movies already, this video is going to be confusing, and I will be doing little to nothing to clear up that confusion, so just be aware of that. But what I was saying, Sugar Rush is, if I could go to any fictional world, and I mean literally, like, if you said, Liz, we could transport you right now to anywhere, it would be Sugar Rush. No questions asked, 100%. That is just exactly what it would be. I love the world building there. I love every aspect. I love the little, like the Mentos and Diet Cola mountain. I love the peppermint trees. I love the peppermint trees. Like the double stripe thing is really cool. I thought it was funny. And then the Nesquik sand. There was just so much. I loved it. And then, you know what they replaced it with? And again, this is me being petty. This is not my main arguments here, so just bear with me for a second. They replaced it with Shank in her dead world, her dead, colorless, bleak land. If my eyes wanted to feast on depression, then yeah, I would look at Slaughter Race. But they do not wish for that. They do not. She has a realistic car. If I wanted to see a realistic car, I would go to our garage and I would look at my mom's boring white Sequoia. But I don't hate myself, so I don't do that. Sugar Rush, I love Sugar Rush because they have the little candy cars. The whole thing is so fun and so creative and so just like it is candy for the eyes. And Slaughter Race could cut a cavity into my soul. I hate it. I hate it. But this is just me. That is my first argument, and it is a bad argument because it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But that's my personal complaint. I feel like they could have done, I don't know, a story with the world building they already had. But actually, since this is kind of tied to world building, what I just said is kind of tied to world building, I will kind of elaborate on that point for a second before we get to the character stuff. The character stuff is the main thing I have to say, and it is the biggest point. But since we're kind of already on world building, let's talk about that for a second. The first Wreck-It Ralph, right, is a very it's based on video games. It's like arcade themed, and I love the arcade theme. I love it. I love the Fix-It Felix game, the Sugar Rush games, Little Pac-Man. It's like very arcade themed, and it's fun and it's creative. I love everything about it. I feel like the internet kind of killed that, in my opinion. And this is less petty than my last argument, but it is, I think, a bit more. There's more to say about it, because for one, any movie that involves like the internet as a part of the world building, there are a couple risks that come with that. One of them is just like if you reference any like online internet joke in a movie, because of how quickly trends move and how fast they come and go, the trend will probably be dead. In fact, I can almost certainly say it will be dead long before the movie ever comes out, and it is immediately kind of just dating your movie. Not romantically, I didn't even think about that, but it's making it seem old, like immediately. And and then another thing, it's just, I feel like if once the internet becomes a part of the world building, it kind of takes away. I feel like a lot of movies, actually only like 2 or 3 that I know about, but once the internet becomes the world, it almost kind of, the story then centers around that, so much so that, like, I feel like the actual story is kind of butchered because there's so much focus on like making either jokes about the internet or references about the internet. I feel like, which can be funny. There are, even in Ralph Breaks the Internet, which I hate, even in that movie, there are some references that I think are kind of funny, but they just don't justify, sacrificing the story, because I feel like I don't know, I just feel like it takes away from the story is my main point on the internet there. And I feel like the arcade theme, there's a lot more you could do with world building and like having fun with that you just don't get to do with the internet. Maybe it could have been done, I don't know. I just kind of have a bias towards the arcade, but that's just my world building complaints. So let me know if you also agree with that. But let's talk about the main problems I have with this film that I was reminded of yesterday. In fact, yesterday when I was watching the movie again, it was actually somehow worse than I remembered it being. What's so frustrating is at the end of the movie, at the very end, for a second, like when Ralph was saying bye to Vanellope, while she was, running off to slaughter race her desolate hole of a game. He said, I don't remember what he said, but there was a moment where I kind of recognized him as a character. I kind of he seemed like himself for maybe 1 second at the end of the whole movie, and it made me sad inside because I was like, why not the rest of the movie? I just he's not even recognizable, and that is my main thing with Ralph Breaks the Internet. I cannot even recognize the characters I'm looking at. It's not like, oh, there's a slight difference. No, they are just fundamentally not the same people in the second movie. Yesterday, when I watched the movie again, I saw something that I completely forgot about, and that was actually the inciting incident of the entire film. Because I remembered my main issues with the whole movie, but I didn't remember, what kicked off the story to begin with. And I remember I saw it yesterday, and it was appalling. And so I want to talk about that for a second. In the beginning of Ralph Breaks the Internet, Ralph and Vanellope, they're talking, as friends do, about, life. And Vanellope's like, do you ever wonder if there's more to life? I really wish I was experiencing something new. Which, in and of itself, I don't have a problem with that. That could be a good building block for the movie. That's a motive, right off the bat, that you can build from. But I more have a problem with the incident that resulted from that, because she was talking, she was like, oh, I wish I had, a new track. And, then they part ways. And Ralph is like, you know what, Vanellope? You want a new track? Well, why don't I give that to you during live arcade hours when there are real people playing your game? Nothing bad could result from that. Certainly not the game shutting down, even though, and that's what happens. The game shuts it down. And because, understandably, the people in the arcade, the real people playing the video games, are like, what is going on here? The game is broken. Which is, obviously, that is the only result that can really come from what they did. And then both Vanellope and Ralph are upset about it. They're like, the game got shut down. How could this have happened? And obviously, I do feel kind of bad for them, but I feel more bad. If this were a real life scenario, I would feel more bad for the other members of Sugar Rush, who had literally nothing to do with that. And make no mistake, I don't like the other Sugar Rush players. I feel like they're kind of mean, but they didn't do anything to deserve that. Vanellope, I feel bad for her in a way because she's clearly upset about it, but then I also am like, there's only so much sympathy I can have for what was such a stupid decision on both of their parts. The fact that he set it up and the fact that she agreed to it. And, obviously I'm not saying characters shouldn't do bad things. In fact, I think characters should do bad things. I think a healthy crime is good for a story, because that gives you something that shows you, okay, this is where this person is now, and this is where they're going to progress from and do better. But I don't think this inciting incident was a good example of a problem that a character could have caused, because it just doesn't even align with the already established personalities of the characters that we have. Because in the first movie, the characters are not stupid, and I think that's my biggest complaint about the second movie, is the characters are so dumb. Ralph is the biggest offender of this. He is such an idiot in the second movie. And the thing is, what I think happened, and this is just a theory, this is not, I don't know this for certain, but my theory, I don't know if the same people wrote the second movie. I choose to believe that different people wrote it. If the same writers wrote the second movie, then I'm going to have to change my worldview, because that goes against everything I believe. What I think happened is, I think the writers of the second movie watched, the first movie, and they saw Ralph, this angry guy with his big hands demolishing and smashing things while yelling, and they just didn't look any further. I don't think they did any digging or looked any deeper into that, because his character in the second movie is just that. It is just this surface level trait that is heightened at every opportunity. He gets mad, and so upset about the strangest stuff. It doesn't make sense because, yes, in the first movie, in Wreck-It Ralph, he is an angry guy. Make no mistake, he's angry. But there is reason behind the anger that he experiences. I mean, he wakes up every day on a pile of bricks alone. You're going to be a little bit peeved by those circumstances. And his motives, like, you could argue like he made some stupid decisions in the first movie, but they weren't stupid from his and the audience's perspective. Some other characters might have thought it was stupid. Like, from Felix's perspective, he might have looked at what Ralph did and thought, oh, he ditched our game to get a medal from another game. Like, that's just not smart. But from the audience's perspective and from Ralph's perspective, you can kind of understand, like, he did this because he believed it was a step into changing his present circumstances. He wanted to feel valued, and you kind of understand that motive behind his actions he does. So even if the actions look stupid to the other characters, it is not that way for the audience. But in the second movie, everyone thinks he's stupid. The audience thinks he's stupid. He is stupid. He does things that just don't make sense. They even basically dumb him down to a kid. They basically say he's the same as Vanellope almost, because there's like one point where, what's her name? The algorithm lady. Yes, is her name. I forgot about that. She said something to the effect of, or he was talking to Vanellope, and he was like, well, you might get lost. You're just a kid. And Vanellope is like, oh, and you're some mature adult? Basically, the movie's saying, like, oh, he's a child. Guys, go easy on him. He's a child. Even, yes, at one point, like, squeezes his face, and I want to say, like, calls him a baby or something. I don't know. It's just weird because in the first movie, yeah, it's a kid's movie, so like every character is going to be written to some extent to be understood by kids, but he is still clearly an adult. He's still like a 30, I think he's 30, I want to say. And like in the first movie, there's kind of this understanding that he is like, and this is how I read it, this might not have been how everyone read it, but I viewed him and Vanellope as kind of like an older brother, younger sister situation, where he's annoyed by everything she does, but he's also kind of a little bit of a mentor, in a way. Not your, like, typical mentor, but, like, he tries to teach her how to drive, and he breaks, like, this, like, a track for her, and he's, you know, it's a wholesome connection, and it was fun to watch. It was just a fun connection. It was like kind of siblings in my eye. But in the second movie, they treat them both like they are both just mindless children, incapable of a good decision. And that goes for Vanellope too. She is less egregious than Ralph, but she is also not innocent in this. She is so selfish in the second movie, and I don't want to be harsh because I understand that, like, she has a dream, right? She wants to leave Sugar Rush, which I can't even begin to understand, but I'm going to put those personal biases aside. She wants to leave Sugar Rush for Slaughter Race, but the thing is, that dream is detrimental to the people around her. I understand having a dream. I have a dream, you know? I want to make a comic book series. I'm working on a comic book right now. I want to make 7 books, and, you know, some would argue that's unrealistic, and some would be right, but I think every dream kind of starts with slightly unrealistic expectations. So I don't want to diss dreams. And I understand that desire, but she just went about it in a way that was so detrimental for everyone else in her game, and she never even considers the other people in her game. It would be one thing if she was like, you know, this dream, I want it, but it could also leave all my friends homeless. So should I think about not doing that? Because, friend, if I made 7 comic books and I knew that somehow me making 7 comic books would make my parents homeless on the street, then I probably wouldn't make 7 comic books. I just feel like your dreams can't hurt other people, you know? And I feel like she just so mindlessly, without a care in the world, is only concerned about herself. She's like, oh, well, what am I called to? What should I do? and there is no focus on the peripheral effect that will have on everyone around her, and it's just frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to watch her and Ralph, and I don't even count the movie as reality. I don't count it. And then I didn't like how they handled her glitch in the second movie. It's a smaller, at least to me, it was a smaller problem than the kind of core character changes, but it still is just kind of annoying because in the first movie that was portrayed as, there were more positive aspects to that, whereas in the second movie they kind of are just like, this glitch is an insecurity and we're gonna put a magnifying glass over that. So I don't know, it was just, I just feel like the second movie took such a negative spin on everything in the first movie, and I feel like it took a very shallow take of the first movie. I feel like whoever wrote it just looked at the general surface of the first movie and then they just took that and never pushed any deeper. And it's a shame because the first movie is so good. It is so good. I love the first movie. Every scene has a purpose. Even the Mento, the Diet Cola mountain, at first that's just a little joke, right? It's just, everyone knows that Mentos explode in is it Pepsi? Diet Cola? They explode is the point. Everyone knows that. And then, later that ends up being a very big, part of the story. That's what kills all the cybugs. And King Candy and the turbo thing, that was really cool. How they set that up. And also just, I don't know, Ralph was a much more respectable person. I loved him in the first movie. Him and Vanellope, there's kind of this parallel between the two of them where they both just kind of live in a dump and they just want to be valued. And there's a deeper, I'm not saying every story has to have a deeper meaning or even that every scene has to have a greater purpose. I would be a hypocrite for saying that because I love to write scenes for fun. I love to write things just for the sake of two characters kind of connecting or getting to know each other a bit more. That in and of itself is a reason for a scene. So I'm not saying every scene has to have a greater purpose, but I'm saying by contrast, the second movie cannot compare to the first one. It just can't. And I will always die on that hill. And that is really all I have to say. It isn't all I have to say, but it's all I'm going to say because this could quickly become a bigger thing. So I'm hoping, having had said this information, I'm hoping that whatever little ghost that possesses my mind with this knowledge, I hope that it goes out and chokes and I don't think about this anymore. So thank you for listening to this. I might make more videos about storytelling or whatnot because I'm very, very, very interested in those topics. Seeing as I'm making a story right now. So yeah, I hope this was enjoyable to you. Let me know if it was or wasn't, and your thoughts on this movie. And that is all. Goodbye.